Hello, good afternoon, and welcome everyone to this Free Friday webinar. We have more than 400 people registered today, and I assume at least half of them will join. So I can see that people are still coming in. So I will start with housekeeping until people join, and then we only have 30 minutes today, so we need to start on time. So welcome everyone. This webinar is automatically captioned. You can use the CC button in Zoom to get the captions. And please do use the Q&A function for questions to the speakers. We will have a short presentation and then room for Q&A in the end. And the chat is monitored for any technical issues, and also we will provide some links in the chat during the webinar. And we will also post the links to the free smart guides afterwards that you can use in your life after this webinar. And your microphones are muted to avoid background noise. And with that, I think we can start the webinar today. Peter, I think you are the first one out.
Yes, thank you. I don't have the control now. So, Malin, can you change the slide, please? Okay, now I have it. So welcome to our webinar about accessible charts, how to make sure that the charts you use are accessible. I'm Peter Kamen, and I'm here with my colleague Malin Hammarberg. And I tried to change the slide, but I'm not succeeding. So I have a blockage here. If somebody can do it, please. Meanwhile, I'm going on. Malin is a UX designer and an accessibility specialist at Funka Foundation and a certified professional in web accessibility. And today's webinar is mainly her merit, I have to say. I'm Peter Kamen. I'm an accessibility and standards specialist with a certified professional in accessibility core competencies and accessible document specialist certification. And as Susanna said, we don't have a lot of time, so let's get to it. We provide this webinar about accessible charts based on what we do. Otherwise, we also do trainings and which we teach about this as well. And I would like to take the opportunity to mention that the next training is the ADS Accessible Document Specialist preparatory training for the IAAP certification. It's a 2 days training, and the first occasion is on the 25th of June, and we'll put the link to that training in the chat. We also do research projects, and the results of those projects are also things that informed this webinar, and we do audits and user testing. And the same there, what we learned there and found there was recycled and used in this webinar. And I'll give the word to Malin.
So, hi, nice to have you all here today. So we will start with how to reduce the chart complexity, because that's a big thing. We add too much stuff into our charts. To make charts easier to understand, it's important that we stick to familiar formats like bar, line, or pie charts. More people know how to read these simpler charts, and that increases the ability for as many users as possible to understand the charts we add. Another thing is that we can cut anything that doesn't add value. So that includes extra data points, notes, or visuals that clutter things up. And if we do this, we only keep what support our main message. That helps a lot of users to focus on the important stuff inside the graphs or charts. We should also think about being careful with numbers. And don't make them more precise than we need. It can be misleading and hard to read. So if we round numbers, we lessen the cognitive load of reading and understanding charts. And we can use visual hierarchy to guide attention, to sort category in some logical order, so it's easy to compare and spot patterns. For instance, we can sort them in high to low. We can help out by, if possible, split the charts into smaller charts. So if your chart has a lot of going on, just split it up. Multiple simple charts are often easier to read than one more complex one. And finally, get rid of any chart junk. So decorations or elements that doesn't help the understanding. The clearer the chart is, the easier it is to grasp. So let's look at some of that chart clutter we can find in charts. So don't do this. This is a don't slide. We have backgrounds behind the slides. Skip the background image or bright colors behind this slide. They draw attention away from the data. Clean neutral background keeps the focus where it should be, and it also lessens the cognitive load of reading a graph or chart. Shadows and other kind of visual effects. So if we drop shadows and other fancy effects, they might look cool, but they add clutter and it makes the chart harder to read. So simpler is better. The same goes for 3D effects. They might seem impressive. They might work in some cases, but most of the time it distorts the data. It's hard to tell the height of the different bars in the bar chart, for instance. So try to avoid it and stick to flight design. It's clearer and easier to understand. There are also some other clutter we can add to our graphs that we think you should be careful with. One example is grid lines. So when we add extra grid lines can help, but too many just clutter the chart. So if we keep only the ones that really help with reading the data, we increases the readability and understandability of the graph. The same goes actually to borders and frames. Decorative boxes around the chart doesn't usually add anything, and they can actually distract from the content inside the graph. So if they don't have or serve a clear purpose, remove those borders and frames. So how do we increase the readability and understandability of the content inside the graphs? One thing we can do is to keep labels short and clear. No need to repeat the same info more than once, and repeating info just adds unnecessary complexity, making it hard to process. So avoid repeating labels. Use horizontal text whenever you can. It's much easier to read than angled or vertical labels. It's easier to read for everyone, but it's especially important for users with reading and writing difficulties or visual impairments. Make sure the font sizes is big enough to be readable, especially on slide when you use the charts on slides or in documents. And don't forget to add captions and alt text. Captions can help everyone understand what the chart is there for, the purpose of the chart. And it can help reduce the cognitive load by clearly explaining what the chart shows. If we add alt text, we support users who rely on assistive technology or screen readers that can't see the chart but need the exact data. But do not confuse that a caption can be as helpful for all users to really understand the purpose of the graph. So let's talk about contrasting charts. Make sure text has good contrast against the background, at least 4.5 to 1. Low contrast, as we know, makes it harder to read, especially for people with low vision or reading difficulties or older users. Be especially careful if you add like headers and footers to a graph, and the lighter font often drop the contrast too low. Also for the chart parts in the background, so different parts of the chart, like the pie slices, the stacked bar blocks, or even the grid lines, they need a contrast to at least 3:1. And the adjacent parts should also meet 3:1 contrast ratio, so they can easily be told apart. We will show some solutions on these, how to do this later on when Peter takes over with some hands-on examples. So let's look at contrast. What should we check? We should, of course, check all the text that are on top of the chart. But we also need to check that all our numbers have enough contrast, and the X and the Y axis and the titles on them have enough contrast, but also the legend. So we don't forget these parts that are outside. If something has too low contrast because we don't want it to be that visible, then maybe we can take it away and reduce the complexity of the graph. Also, we need to check the chart parts to the background, as I said. So what each piece has as a contrast ratio against the background. So in these cases, we have pie chart with 3 pieces of the pie. All of them needs to comply with against the background. In stacked bar charts, of course, we need to check all the blocks in the stacked bar charts together to make sure that they have enough contrast against the background. But we also need to check that the grid lines has enough contrast against the background. And the last one, adjacent parts. So it's important that the parts of a pie chart has enough contrast against the next part. So it's easy to tell where one ends and the next one starts. We also need to check the contrast between the stacked parts of bar chart. So it's not enough that they have enough contrast against each other. It's also important that we make sure that the colors differentiate enough, especially if we use just colors to imply the legend. So it's possible to see even if you can't see those colors. They need enough contrast between the lowest part to the highest part as well. Peter will go into some more examples about it very shortly. But first, we also want to talk about how to use color and layout wisely. So use colors with purpose, to highlight key information, not to make the chart look pretty. Avoid unnecessary gradients or too many colors that don't add meaning. So do not use them for decoration. Do not rely on color alone. So make sure that you can watch your chart in grayscale and that you can that people understand the difference even if they can't see colors. So you can add patterns or shapes or the position of labels to help make the message clear even without colors. And finally, placing the placement of the legend close to the data. It helps the user connect the labels and the meaning more quickly, reducing the effort it takes to read and understand the chart. With that, Peter, do you have some nice examples?
Yes, I indeed do. And oh, great, I have the control. So thank you, Malin. And how to put many of that in practice. We cannot address all the issues Malin mentioned because that would take a much longer webinar, but we'll concentrate on how to deal mainly with contrast and colors and what solutions to find to make your chart more accessible. So here we have a typical pie chart, maybe not typical, well, even that way it's typical because it's not accessible. It happens very often. What is the problem? If you look at it, and if it's even worse when you look at it projected on the screen, the colors between it's difficult to differentiate between the slice colors to see exactly how big is one slice, but where it's even more difficult is when you try to match the legend under the pie chart, so the legend to the different slices. It's even more obvious if we turn it into grayscale. Here you can see that it is basically impossible to know which legend belongs to which slice. So what can we do? First, play with the legend. So to say, you can move them to be labels, outside end labels, move them next to the slices, so it's obvious and clear what the data is for the different slices. But we still have a problem for seeing the sizes of the different slices, although we have the percentages, but the idea is to have a good visualization. So we should take care of that. What can we do? Best, easiest solution is to add separators. You can, you can play with contrast, you can increase the contrast, but there's only a limited number of slices that it would work for. If you put in these separators, the important thing is the contrast between the white separator and the slice color. You can go to infinite number of slices, but please don't do that because that would be an extremely complex chart. So just keep it to a couple of slices. Now you can see that in grayscale it is working perfectly. And no, we haven't made a trick. These are different colors still, although now they look like they are all the same. But still, even if they would be the same, you could tell the sizes of them because of using the separators. Another way to go is to use patterns. Here, this is the same color for each slice, but we use different patterns. Two things to mention for that. Please use big patterns because very small patterns can blur for people with low vision or for me after 8 o'clock and in the evening. And the other thing is we chose to show it with one color because now you can see that it works even with one color. You can choose different colors, but please do it tastefully. Don't make it harsh, loud colors that could clutter your chart and that could be creating some negative effects, anxiety, or just hard to look at. So please be modest with the colors, but use colors like this. This is actually the same color, but with different hues that provide big enough contrast. So that's another way to create, to separate, distinguish the slices. Again, the problem here, the issue is that you can do it only for 3 or 4 slices. Beyond that, you cannot play only with hues. So that was pie charts. Now let's look at stacked column charts. This is the same way not accessible as the first pie chart was. The contrasts are not enough between the sections, and it's difficult to pair the legend with the sections. So even more visible when it is in grayscale. What can we do? Here we can use separators as well. Here we can move around the legend and move it to the side, so they basically duplicate the structure of the column charts sections. But an important thing is that this solution only works if you have all the sections in all columns. If one is missing, then you wouldn't be able to tell then which section is belonging to which series. Another way to do it, as before, is to use so the same color with very different hues that provide big contrast. And here we also added a border, so now we solved also the contrast issue between the background and the lowest section of the chart. Another solution here again to use patterns. And what I would like to emphasize again is that please don't use too small patterns, because if the pattern is small, for example, in the legend, then it would be very difficult to identify it and pair it with the right section. This looks very nice in grayscale, maybe even better than in color. And the third chart type is line charts, where same inaccessible chart, it's impossible to say which line belongs to which series, but here there's a trick. If you can use the solution of moving the legends next to the line, but it only works if the lines are not crossing. What happens if you have a chart where the lines cross? And that happens very frequently. Here is an example. You cannot tell if this is one series or this is one series. You cannot tell which is one line. So what are the solutions to use? You can use dashes to differentiate between the lines. Works perfectly in grayscale. You can use markers, make sure that the markers are distinguishable and big enough to distinguish among them. And yeah, that was it. Markers and dashes for crossing line charts. And now we have a final exercise. I give back the word to Malin.
We thought it would be fun to see if this actually gave something. So we had this exercise, but I see that the time is running low, and I think it's better to use the time for questions. But if you like to, just write your heart out in the slide, in the chat. So exercise, contrast and colors. What need to make this column chart accessible? For one, it's relying on color alone, right? So you can't tell the legend apart from the what parts are what in the legend. Also, there is low contrast on everything actually in this slide. No contrast is approved. So let's look at what we can do. So this is one possible solution. We increased the contrast of everything so they have enough contrast, the grid lines, the text, the titles. We also made all the charts in the same color because there were no need for having them in different colors when we put the legend under each bar. Also, we added these numbers here, and it's if you have a visual impairments, it's nice to just need to check one place instead of we have the numbers of what each bar shows down here in the bottom of each bar. And it's very nice because then you can easily see what each number shows instead of trying to figure out how much is this, where am I, and need to scroll back and forth. So this is one possible solution where you can add that increased understandability, use and ease of a bar chart. So think about the contrast, the colors, removing data points that's not necessary, reducing the clutter. Now we're open for questions.
Thank you, Malin. Thank you, Peter. We have loads of questions. Many of them are slightly technical, and we talked about that before. This is supposed to be about kind of the design and the graphics on bar charts. I think there is room for a more technical webinar on charts as well. So maybe we'll do that after the summer. But I'll pick some of the. Okay, now you are showing something else. Did you want to say something?
No, I was trying to see the questions, but I couldn't. I don't know why.
So the questions we have are, is there a suggestion on how thick the space between the pies shall be? That's a design.
Yeah. Usually think thick enough line, because when lines are really thin, we tend to miss them. It's the same when we use thin font, so don't use too thin fonts in your charts, because when the font is thin, we use it in a gray and it's hard to tell. The same happens when we have a really thin line between the pieces of the pies in a pie chart. So it's important that it's visual enough. Funny enough, I think they become more beautiful the thicker the line is, and especially when we have a white background, we use a white line, it kind of becomes rather pretty graphs, I think. Charts. I say graphs. I think it's the wrong word.
Didn't really respond to the question. What is the recommendation? Not too thin is not really a...
Okay, it depends on what you use. So if we do talk about documents, I would recommend not less than 1 point at least. If we're talking about web, it's hard to tell because it depends on the size of the graph chart, right? So, but maybe aiming for 2 pixels.
Thank you. Round numbers are not always recommendable or even possible. Many statistics, etc., require exact numbers. So that's more of a comment, but I think you talked about round numbers in the beginning. Maybe you can say something about that.
It's more about when you add numbers inside your chart. So you want to show what a point says, and you have like 23.-1, comma 123 or something. Then it increases the cognitive load for all users trying to understand what the data is, because it takes more effort to see a number with a lot of small numbers behind. So then it's remove the number entirely, do not show it, or try to reduce the number of what's it called? The small numbers behind the comma. I can't find the English word right now. The
Decimals.
decimals. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think we must add that there are some times where you need to have the exact numbers. That's true. But then maybe you can add a description, or you can write about it. You can try to do something. But it's very clear that many people struggle with too exact numbers. That doesn't mean that exact numbers are bad or that it's forbidden. But you may choose how to communicate around those kind of details, and maybe add a summary for people who do not need the small details, and then have kind of an in-depth information with the smaller number or something like that. I think there are ways around that, making it understandable for more users, but still sticking to what you actually need to show if the kind of the details are important. So there are many questions about alternative text. That's not really what we're talking about today, but can we say something in general on how to describe pie charts or charts with many details in alternative text? Peter, you wanted to?
Yes. So I think, and it's very similar to having exact data. So charts are there to visualize trends and the complex, like the overview of the things. If you want detailed data, then you possibly provide a data table. And I say that because it's also true for alt text. Usually you don't want to detail all the data in the chart. You want to express what it shows, what are the trends, what are the specific events in there. And for the real data details, I think it's better to provide that in text, in the document, in annex, somewhere else. So the idea of the chart is to have a simplified overview to give an idea.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And we have also a lot of questions about libraries, tools. Yeah, sorry.
I just want to say that when I've seen some really beautiful alt text added to charts, and I think that alternative text also help users with cognitive disabilities. So thinking about adding that alternative text instead as a caption so that every user can see it helps a lot of users that also users who don't understand graphs easily or charts easily.
Thank you, Malin. Very good. So we have a series of questions around tools and supporting things, if we can recommend any libraries or any ways to do. I don't know if you have anything to share there, something you can let people know if there's any JavaScript
charts, or no, I don't want to share something today because I don't have anything in my mind that I know that we are sure that we can recommend. So a lot of those JavaScripts and different tools online, they have different issues. So I don't, without having added this and very clearly being sure what to say, I don't really feel that I want to lead you down the wrong way.
Okay, so maybe we really have to revisit this after the summer with the more technical parts of this, because there is a long list of questions also about screen readers and assistive technology and how to do this good in a technical way. But it is now just 1 minute left, so I think we should also talk about what happens just before everyone goes on holiday, which is the next. We also have a possibility to let people follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter. So we have the links, I hope, in the chat, and also QR codes here for anyone. If you're not following us yet, please do. And for the next web, we also have smart guides, yes, that you are welcome to share. Of course, they are free to use, and you can find the links in the chat and also on our website. All the smart guides for all the Friday webinars are collected. And next webinar is in 2 weeks, where our colleague Sarah will talk about accessibility requirements for support services and customer service. So serving all customers, accessibility support services, and the European Accessibility Act. That is the 27th of June, same time, same channel. That is the last thing we do before we all go sailing. So thank you very much, Malin and Peter and Stefan for this webinar today, and everyone who listened. And yes, we will share the recording. Everyone registered will get the link to the recording as soon as it's uploaded and ready. Thank you, everyone. Have a very nice rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.